your host, Mark Jeffries and Matt Pangrack. BTL is brought to you by Lowrance, Lose, Strike King Lures, Bass Cat Boats, Ducket Fishing, Spro, AFCO, Sunline, and TH Marine. BTL coming at you. Good Thursday, everybody. Welcome once again to BTL Bass Talk Live, where we're going to talk bass fishing and anything else that we want to talk about. Matthew, we are underway, man. We have standings.
4 days of shows this week, and our first day, it was kind of weird that the Open kicked off on a Wednesday.
Yeah.
Usually it's a Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I was unaware of that, and then I was like, oh, we get to watch it. Weigh-in was like 9 hours long. You had 230 guys
That's a lot of people,
in the
man.
Eastern Open, and then
Yeah.
you throw in the co-anglers too. You're talking 460 guys going across the stage. I didn't
Lot of
watch
guys.
all of it.
How much?
An hour maybe.
All right.
But I did, because our boy Bradley Hallman, who's, by the way, a celebrity now. You're gonna have to increase his pay. He's
big time,
at
man.
Scott Martin, man. He's on the Scott Martin channel now.
I know.
They introduced him. He's staying at a house with Scott and like 3 cameramen,
I know.
and then Upshaw and Castledine and Hallman.
Yeah.
There's some type A personalities in there. But I guess he's in the crew for the year.
Yeah, the camera
For
rolling all the time.
all
too.
8 of the Opens, and then he goes out and he busts an 8-pounder.
Yeah.
So he was my pick. He's in tied for 8th. Patrick Walters, continuing the theme of Elite Series guys dominating the
Yeah.
Opens, is leading the thing with 21-4, and then Scott Martin down in 60th. So it's one of those deals where roughly, I did get word that there are approximately 50 anglers who are fishing all 8 of the Opens. Would really like to have that list out. Hopefully that'll be in the Angler of the Year standings when they update it.
They need to.
It's kind of like a mystery now of who the guys fishing the 8 are, but
Yeah.
kind of a marathon, not a race for those guys trying to get in the top 4. They're fishing all 8 of the Opens.
Yeah.
So. Brian News in second. Now, do you have any idea who Brian News is?
I have no idea, dude.
Now, I saw that and I was like, man, that's a familiar name. How do I know that guy? Well, he won that Ray Scott American deal on Eufaula earlier this year, and now he's second in the Open. I think he's a South Carolina dude.
Huh.
Yeah. Dave
Two
Rush
South-
is the one who pointed that out.
2 South Carolina guys.
Yeah.
Interesting. Huh, were you surprised by the weights?
Yeah, pretty low.
It's kind of what I thought.
Yeah, I guess the water temperature is really warm and stuff for down there, but it's about to bust open at any minute. We've never heard that before
No.
in Florida.
No. All right, folks, we have a great show today, a 4th show this week. We are going to have live right here in studio Mr. John ACOSTA, the Senior VP for Marketing and Sales for Major League Fishing, and really looking forward to having him on here in about 10, 15 minutes and just kind of get his take on what has happened, what's going to happen, and, kind of the state of the union,
There you
more
go.
or less.
It says business development, not sales on his.
It's the same thing.
Well, I don't know. Well, that's what I was going to ask him about it, what it is. Because,
It's the same
you grow up
thing.
in the fishing world like I did. You're
Yeah.
not very well versed in
Yeah.
the corporate environment, so to speak. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like you always say, how long do you think I'd have lasted at UPS in your quad?
Not very long.
Like what, a week? Would I have even lasted before I got
No.
called into your office?
No, you would have walked out, man.
Were you the guy who had to do that? Like, did you ever have anyone come in and be like, it just isn't for you?
Yeah, interns.
Yeah. Anyway.
A lot of interns.
But I like to go through the Major League Fishing website and read the job titles because there's very few that are less than like 6 words.
Yeah. Well, there was a stage that we went through from a sales and marketing standpoint when I was at UPS. We went from sales and marketing to business development.
Okay.
Then we went back to sales and marketing from a title standpoint.
Interchangeable.
So, trends maybe, I don't know. Bottom line is the man is responsible for making things happen from a sales, marketing, and business development standpoint. How about that?
I'm good with that.
All right. I want to let everybody know a couple of things, couple of housekeeping things. We have on February 4th, I got it confirmed yesterday, Matthew, we are going to have Bruce Aiken on live via Skype to kind of give a, I don't know, State of the Union for Bass and Bassmaster and the Elite Series and everything else. I had been working on that for a while, and I finally got a firm date. So February 4th, he will be on live via Skype. And then I want to remind everybody, a very, very special show next Wednesday. Do you know what's happening?
The hair? The fish
or
kissing?
Or is it Tuesday? Yeah. Boy, I screwed that up. I can't remember if it's Tuesday or Wednesday. Can you look real quick?
Is it on the...
It's on the website, Future Shows.
Hold on. This computer works way better than the last computer.
I know. I didn't write it down on my scribble notes here. I screwed up.
Where does it say Future Shows on here?
On the BTL page.
I'm on the BTL page. Well, maybe I'm not.
Come on, man. Is it Tuesday or Wednesday?
Tuesday, January 21st. Jimmy Houston.
Jimmy Houston live in studio, and that's going to be great. And I'm going to kick that show off by going, Jimmy, you probably don't remember, but I caused you a lot of problems.
How did you cause Jimmy
the
Houston?
UPS story.
Oh, yeah, I remember you told
dude,
that. That was great.
He was in my... I've never seen Jimmy Houston as mad as he was.
I know people who have really pissed off Jimmy Houston because I got a buddy who one of his rare deer got out of a pen, and my buddy was like, hut next to it, was like, what is that thing? And shot it.
Yeah.
And then took it to the grocery store to show it off, and Jimmy's like, dude, that thing had been my pet for 20 years. And then I got a Jimmy Houston story. I actually ate dinner with Jimmy and Chris at the 1998 Bassmaster Classic black tie banquet. I got pictures of it. I'm trying to find a picture in time to bring it in.
Yeah.
I'm in my gold rim glasses as a little kid, tuxedo, standing next to Jimmy Houston.
Yeah.
I'm sure he remembers that. Had to be one of the highlights of that classic.
Dude, he was pissed, man. When I denied that claim for those electronic units that were damaged.
Not a happy camper.
Oh my gosh. I never realized he had a temper like that. I don't think he has a temper.
No.
I think he just went DEFCON 5 for no apparent reason.
It is DEFCON 1 is upset.
No, 5 is the max.
No, 5 is not. 1 is the max. 5 is the least.
That's not true.
I think it's true.
Where did that come from?
I'll Google it during one of our viewers said that the last show. I've heard it before.
Where did that come from?
Is it a...
It was a movie, and
I thought
Matthew
it was like a
Broderick
military term.
was in it. No. And it was called War Games.
Oh, okay.
You can Google that
I
up.
need to do my research on
Yeah,
that,
you do. It's like from 1982, maybe? 83? War Games. That's where he hacks into the NATO system and he launches this code for a nuclear attack, and the dude goes, they see this thing ramping up, and they go, let's go DEFCON 3, and then they go DEFCON 4. Folks, we are at DEFCON 5, and that's the highest level, and that's where that came from. So look that up. All right, there was another thing I was very, very excited about. I've mentioned this on the show before. All right, last night, kind of a late night, I had to do some stuff for the True Bowling stuff. We're having this big conference call on Friday. Anyway, they have sent out the previews, kind of the teasers for Yellowstone. Have you watched that on the Paramount Network yet? I talked about it when it was on.
Is that the one with Kevin Costner?
It's unbelievable,
Here's the problem.
dude.
I watched the first 2 episodes, and then I was like, cool, I'm into this series. And then I had to go do something, and my girlfriend had the day off, and she watched the rest of the series in like a 23-hour bender.
Yeah.
And I haven't watched any more of them.
Dude, you have to watch that. It's better than The Sopranos. It's like a cowboy version of The Sopranos.
Okay.
So he's a bad dude. All right. And I've met Kevin Costner because he was in our...
Name drop Kevin Costner?
Dude, he was in our fraternity. It was a big deal. And when he came... What?
Wait, and not at OU?
Not at OU.
Are you guys the same age?
Close to it. Close to it.
So he did like the fraternity rounds?
Well, he did, yeah. When he
was with Dances with Wolves?
When he was starting out. Yeah, he did the rounds, and he was very involved in the fraternity and all. Anyway,
leathers?
Cool dude. No. He wasn't wearing the letters. What are you talking
leathers.
about? Oh.
Like from Dances with Wolves?
No. I thought you meant the Greek letters.
No,
he
that
wasn't.
too. No, you got the secret handshake with the people that you
Oh, yeah, there's some code out there.
McDonald's and stuff. You should see him.
Here, let me give the code right here. That way any of the... The D-Kais out there, they know what that means.
So weird.
All right, so day 2, man, what are your predictions?
For the Open?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, because if Brad doesn't have that 8-pounder, he's got like 11 pounds.
Oh, by the way, man, the video of him catching that,
You got to give him some grief.
it's epic.
You give me grief for my fish catch in April in the ACOSTA, or the FLW series now.
Yeah,
You got to get, he did the woo. He kissed the fish not once, not twice, not 3 times, not 4 times, but 5 times.
way too many.
I thought it was great.
It was pretty cool.
I mean, that could be the fish that gets him on the Elite Series at the end of the year. You could look back at that, but anyway.
Yeah.
Bass brought the A-team, though. I think they got Sego there. They got Overstreet there. They got Boba there. They interviewed everybody in the top 30.
Yeah. They got everybody there. Anyway, yeah, some people on the instant feedback are saying, yes, it's DEFCON 1 to DEFCON 5, lower to high and all that. Dude, I'm telling you, in the movie, in fact, Dave put on the instant feedback, there is a famous line from that movie that is used quite often. It says, want to play a game, and it does it in a little computer. Anyway.
I thought that was that wrestler.
No.
Who says that?
That would be the game.
Oh.
Time to play the game.
Oh.
That's Triple H. Come on, man. All right. Anything else, Matthew?
No, I think that about covers it. Your boy Bobby Lane only came in with like 10 pounds. He's
massively disappointed.
But I feel like you can make a jump there.
It's one big bite, right? Isn't that what this event's kind of about? You get that one big bite. That's the way it always is in Florida.
That's the way Florida is. You gotta. It's weird because those guys know that's how it's going to come down to.
Yeah.
It seemed like a bunch of guys grouped up too, based on the photos. You ever done that? Been on the massive flats where you're fishing around 20 or 30 other boats? I've never been in that situation.
That's because you do some weird stuff, man. You're kind of out there on your own.
The only time I was even remotely close to that was Amistad, and we saw how I spun out and drove the boat for 6 hours at 70 miles an hour and 0.
All right, we're going to take a break. Come back here on a special show on Thursday. Everybody stay tuned.
The ultimate fishing system starts with Lowrance HDS Live. Upgrade to HDS Live with a Ghost trolling motor, live sight transducer, or Structure Scan 3D, and get up to $500 cash back.
Yeah, you care about gear ratios, inches per turn, and ball bearings, but most importantly, you want reliability and dependability in the equipment you use. Luz doesn't cut corners when it comes to the gear they build. The new Speed Spool LFS is the best $99 reel in the market. Go see for yourself.
We've paired one of the most iconic hulls in the history of bass boats with a proven lineup of trusted accessories. We're bringing you best-in-class value and performance, leaving others in your wake. Turnkey value, turnkey performance. The Pantera 2 is an overachiever in the 19-foot category. Once you hit the throttle, you'll feel the rush, and there's no looking back.
Kevin, what are you doing here?
Oh, I'm just filling in for Billy.
I need 660 shad crankbaits in the Series 5 model.
We're out.
You're not out. You got all kinds of them right there.
We're out.
Kevin, I need 6.
Have a lollipop.
I do not want a lollipop.
Have a lollipop.
Do you have it in sexy shad color?
At Duckett Fishing, we have assembled the top pros in the country to help us design rods to give you a competitive advantage. Castability, strength, durability, action, sensitivity, weight and balance, and consistency. Combine that with the best warranty in the industry, and you have rods that are pro-driven.
Duckett Fishing, pro-driven.
I want to share with you a new product we got coming out from Sunline. This is the FC leader size spools that we have now. We've gotten a lot of requests for this. A lot of you guys use fluorocarbon for leaders only, myself included. And one of the problems you have is when you have a 200-yard spool, that might last you 2, 3, 4 years. You might even lose it before you even get done with the spool. So we've gone to a little smaller spool. These are 50-yard spool sizes. You know, that way you're not holding your line on forever. You can keep your line fresh, use it when you can, stores real easily in the boat. We got all of our popular line sizes that you're used to with our Sniper from 5 to 14 pound. If you guys are looking for a line that you're only tying for a leader, go check out Sunline FC Leader 100% fluorocarbon and give it a try.
Blue Water by TH Marine, offering LED lighting solutions for your boat, trailer, truck, ATV, and so much more. Engineered and built to be rugged with waterproof and submersible options. Designed for easy installation, Blue Water is available in a variety of colors and styles. All backed by a limited lifetime warranty. Blue Water by TH Marine.
The name SPRO says it all. SPRO stands for Sports Professionals. When you look at the pro staff that SPRO has brought on board over the past 15 years, it's been pretty incredible. I mean, one got it just then. From the development of the rock crawler to the McStick, from the Fat Papa to the Little John series, when you tie a SPRO bait on, you know it's been designed by a professional to get the job done.
Meet AFCO's ICAST award-winning Hydronaut waterproof system. Hydronaut features a 20K 100% waterproof shell, double dry cuffs to keep water out, speed vent hood engineered to prevent neck strain at high rates of speed, AFCO exclusive Cyclops tactical camera mount, Comfort Flex shoulder straps for all-day comfort, outerwear that you can count on. The Hydronaut waterproof system by AFCO. Any fish, any water.
All of us on the Pro Tournament Trail use Gamakatsu hooks.
Why?
Because they are absolutely the best.
It's not about how many bites you get.
It's how many you put in the boat.
Gamakatsu makes hooks for every fishing style.
We didn't come this far to lose fish.
Did you?
For more information, visit gamakatsu.com.
You are serious about catching fish. That HDS is a dead giveaway. You've got the best fish finding sonar money can buy. Time to build the ultimate fish finding system with live sight sonar. See what your lure is doing in real time. Watch fish strike as it happens. See for yourself. Take the Live Sight Sonar 30-day challenge. If Live Sight Sonar doesn't help you find and catch more fish, send it back, no questions asked.
All right, we are back on a Thursday, a special show in studio. And I want to welcome our special guest, Mr. John ACOSTA, the Senior VP of Business Development and Marketing, as Matt put it. I don't want to dish you anywhere on that, John, on the title, but appreciate you coming down. And I got to be honest right off the bat. I thought you lived in Tulsa. So you've come a long way.
I have. You know, first of all, thanks for having me. It means a lot. We're extremely grateful, and for you guys to be accommodating my schedule. It's been a busy week. I was at the national championship game earlier this week, and to be able to make my swing back. So yeah, it's been quite a road to get back. But yeah, I'm based in Springfield, and you know, prior to being at Major League Fishing, I was at Bass Pro Shops for 12 years, and so it's home. And the beautiful thing is the Major League Fishing offices are 2.5 hours door to door. So makes it pretty easy to get back and forth and everything else. But really excited to be here today.
All right.
Well, he's been in Springfield. I drive up to Springfield to that insane aquarium all the time. I've been there like 5 times. I went there with my parents. They got me a year-long pass so I could go to the aquarium whatever I want now. Like, you go there a lot?
That's a legit 3 hours in that place easily.
Yeah.
And I mean, you should literally plan a half day plus.
Like, how far do you live from that?
5 minutes.
Yeah, that's
right around the corner.
Yeah, if you're within 6 hours of the aquarium, go to the aquarium.
Yeah. All right, man. Part of the reason why we wanted to get you on, we have Boyd on the show quite a bit, and Boyd has been very vocal in some of the stuff that is taking place and kind of what he sees for the future. But I want to start out, and I want you to go back and kind of give us your take on 2019, and honestly, tell the fans and tell us what you think you guys did right and what you think you guys did wrong.
Sure. I think that's a great question. We spent a lot of time this offseason reflecting on all of that because it's been such a whirlwind. I think the reality is when we announced the Bass Pro Tour and then had basically 90, not even, a couple of months to get that off the ground, hire up staff, everything else, it all came really, really fast and furious, right? And I remember being standing in Kissimmee, and we were all talking, and we were just hoping that the live stream would turn on, and and it would actually work and all that, because we were moving so fast and everything else. But as you look back on the season, it's been it's been a time of rapid growth, right? And I think you went into it not knowing what you didn't know. So I think it's the startup mentality, but we also had the history and credibility of an awesome TV show and format for 8 years, but you just didn't know how that was going to go, getting expanded out, to the field of 80 guys and everything else. So I think overall we've learned a lot. The stages and the travel and the logistics and getting new guys on board from our staff to really understand not only how to cover and produce an event, but just all the other logistics from a business standpoint, angler relationships, new sponsors, existing sponsors, folding all that in, and just making sure we had a place for guys to fish. So I think some of the things were probably not optimal in terms of just how we had to build a schedule on the fly, and some of the things referenced earlier with some of the early technical difficulties. But overall, I think it was an extremely successful season. I think at the same point, we're our own worst critics, so we're always thinking about what can we do better, what didn't we do or accomplish or anything else. And we were really looking forward to getting in the off season, right, to discern and reflect. And all of a sudden, again, for the second straight fall, we had another seismic thing happen with the acquisition of FLW. But I think that overall, it was really, really exciting. I think that our fans and viewers really showed in terms of tuning in, on the live stream, and then the great success that we've had with our discovery shows. And so we're excited about 2020. We've got a lot to build on, like I said, and I think with having a year under our belt is going to be really important for us, but we're looking forward to continuing to build on the great successes that we had this past year. Now, again, some of the things that, if you ask, what could we improve upon or opportunity, areas, I think, it's just a continual, aspect on listening to the fans. What do they want? What is the feedback or anything else? And having an open mind to that. I think that, like I said, the schedule, played out great. The first half of the year was just phenomenal. I mean, we had these awesome events and everything else. And then I think, the flooding at Grand, hurt us just a little bit. I think we made the best of it, and we had to make a quick pivot and call with staying at Table Rock, second time. But overall, the show must go on. And I think that we made the best of a situation. And I think as we move forward, I'm really, really excited because in 2020, this schedule, was built, to get these guys on the right place at the right times, and I think you're going to see some really, really interesting things coming up for next year.
All right, from a marketing standpoint, let's face it, John. There were people, there were fans. They were upset. I mean, and you're never ever going to be able to please everybody. But from a technology standpoint, you guys had some major challenges, and for the people out there to understand the complex progression of trying to do what you guys were doing. It takes a massive effort, but there were a lot of high expectations, all right, based upon the field that you had, the players that were involved, the buildup. What can you tell the fans and what can you tell us to assure us that these same streaming issues are not going to occur in 2020?
Yeah, we worked really, really hard, and I know that our production and digital and everyone inside MLF has been very aware and cognizant of that. I think, as the season progressed last year, we were able to rectify a lot of that. I know that early on, and our our technical issues, are kind of compounded with two things, right? It's the live stream, but it's also the score tracker aspect and the additional technical requirements and capabilities that we need to be able to have that, live leaderboard happening all the time and communicate that across. So there's a lot of other things that I think that the general public does not see that we have to vet out in terms of making sure that we have, a playing field that will accommodate our game. Having said that, we did run into some early technical difficulties, and I think that, some of the fan frustrations that we saw in terms of just continual loops of commercials running or other things really, we had ad insertion issues that we had to work through. So, I think as you look back and reflect, we didn't have the opportunity to test and make sure everything was going, I think, because of the time frames that we were working with. So, I think this is pretty emblematic of, being a 21st century sports league where you're continuing to iterate and move fast and then build as you go and make adjustments. And I think we're still in the process of doing that. But I know that all of those things, our product, even in spite of that, was phenomenal, in terms of the gameplay, the coverage, everything else. And I think the viewers really, responded with that. But like I said, I think we will continue to refine and get better at that, and we've made the adjustments. That's what the off season was for, and everything else. And I think you're gonna see an elevated, not only a production value, but also just a better overall experience. However you're watching it, if you're watching it on desktop, on app, or anything else. So.
All right, Matt, I have one more follow-up to that, and then I'll finally let you ask a question there. I'm curious, can you talk about any changes from a format standpoint? I'm not talking about the actual fishing format, but I'm talking about the experience for the fan to watch what you guys are planning to put in place for 2020. Are there set changes? Are there personnel changes? What can the fans expect in 2020?
Yeah,
can you talk about that?
Absolutely. I think there's a few things there, and all of our talent is returning back, so that's very exciting. So you're going to see Chad, JT, and Marty doing their thing. One of the biggest visual changes that you'll see is that we'll be moving to a studio set based out of Tulsa, and so that will allow. There's a few reasons for that, and one was just dealing with the elements. When we were out there, as cool as it looked, the overall game day, college game day experience of that set on location, it was limiting in terms of some of the things that we could do from a production standpoint, as well as dealing with elements. But we think that overall that studio experience, and from the renderings I've seen, it's going to be absolutely phenomenal. But it's also going to allow us to do some really cool things that we've got planned, integrating with sponsors and anglers on an even more in-depth and intensive basis than what you saw in year one in 2019.
All right, so the crew's all back.
The crew's all back, yep. I think you're also, with that, what were the three tenets that you talk about? The 3 E's.
Educate, entertain, and engage.
Exactly. So those are really key things, and that will be going into my own notes. But from an education standpoint, I think you're going to see a lot more of that. And a lot more in-depth education, talking about techniques, presentations, baits, lures, and other things. And the studio is really going to be able to help us bring that to life on top of the action that's happening on water. So it's going to continue to evolve, but I think it's really, really exciting. And it goes back to, we learned a lot last year, but I think the major improvements and things we're going to have, moving forward, the overall production quality is going to dial up another big notch.
Post game show, anything like that? Is that what's going on with that next year?
So the post-game show is now, because we will have a studio and we won't have a stage out there or anything else. We will have a post-game show, and it will take place at the ramp right after the gameplay concludes. And so there'll be a lot of activity there. We're still working through all of the details on that, and we're working with our sponsors, and we've already got lined up the title positions and things like that, and working through final logistics there. But you're going to see a really cool way that right after the play ends, that we're going to go straight to the action, talk to the anglers. And I think one of the things that we learned was, and you guys will understand this, when we did our live stream on site, and then we had to reset the stage, and we had an hour and a half plus gap or anything else, and come back to the post game show. It was great for angler coverage and everything else, but we just felt like strategically it was the best thing was to have that continuity of talking to the anglers immediately as they're coming off the water, and then really create an even more interesting experience, for them, and covering just like you would in other pro sports, right? Post-game press conference, things like that. We want to be able to continue to have that continuity as soon as gameplay ends and get those instant feedback and reactions from the anglers right then and there.
One of the big things last year that popped up a lot on social media, a lot in the fishing circles, and even some of the Gerald Swindle talked about it when he came on our show, was the fan interaction at the tournaments, the launch, the weigh-in, and you guys activated it at some events last year and didn't now that there's no stage or show going on there. How important or not important is to both, you think, the fans and the sponsors, that you have the fan experience at these events, and kind of what has been the off-season talk about either getting more people there or really kind of not highlighting the importance of people being there for launches, weigh-ins, meeting them, etc.?
Yep, it's a great question, and it's a topic that we have discussed at length and are making those adjustments going into 2020. The fan experience is absolutely important, and I think it's important to remember, we started as a media first platform, right? So with the cups and selects and everything else that were made for TV and everything else, and now as we evolve into that, the stakes are higher, but there's also so much more that we've got to do with all of these anglers. So we understand that. Our sponsors want that. And, we had a sponsor summit in September, and we talked at length. We actually spent, a good amount of time doing breakouts, working through, a lot of those discussions. But I think at the end of the day, you're going to still see, us and bring out our MLF Midway, our big large-scale activation events. But you're also going to see a lot more what we're calling, I guess for a lack of a better term, micro activations, where we'll do things in market or anything else. The beauty is we have a lot of sponsors, that have a lot of footprints in markets that we're going to in some way, with Bass Pro Shops being our title sponsor. So we can do things at their stores, we can do things on site, we can do things at the ramp. We are actively talking about what that experience is, because I know that fans will want to meet the anglers, see their trucks, see their boats, and be able to have that aspect. But I think there's a lot of things from community events and other things that we do that we tested a lot last year, that we're taking those learnings and rolling them into 2020. So we're very aware of what we need to do to serve the fan, not just from a viewership standpoint through a screen, but through live interactions and other things. And it's very important for us as we move forward. And I think it's just as important that as a tour that's only a year in existence, that we're working through all the logistics and trying to just figure out everything all at once. And so, how
important is it for the sponsors then? I mean, were there sponsors that Bass makes a big deal about the people that are there, the sponsors that they have. How important is to the sponsors as opposed to their presence across the digital platforms that you have, as opposed to the in-person one-on-one interaction, with the fans? Like, are there obviously some sponsors who value one more than the other?
Yeah, I think it all comes down to just business objectives. And I think, and understanding the nuances and differences between Major League Fishing and our competition.
What, was that a bad question?
No. I'm laughing, John. A couple of people on the instant feedback, they're like, tell him to face the camera. We want to see what he looks like. All right, so,
hey, he's got the best haircut in the game.
Oh, my God.
Anyway, go on with the question then.
No, you're good. Yeah, from a sponsor standpoint, it just depends on the objectives. And, the reality is some of our endemic sponsors, have investment, with us and with our competition, and look at us for, there are strengths on both sides, right? And I think as we're building out that capability for activation, we're right now, as getting this tour off the ground, we're playing to our strengths, right? And I think you see it in terms of our media platforms and the live stream, as well as our linear TV shows. But it is still really important, right? They want to be able to touch and do that. And we, we made some great strides, in our first year. But it's something that, they want to do. But at the same point, I think part of that discussion is, there's only a finite bucket of money, right? And it is not inexpensive to activate and deploy assets and resources to every event or anything else. So we had honest conversations with our sponsors about that. Do you want an ongoing presence at every event, or would you rather have larger, bigger events, knowing everything else that you have? Some of our sponsors have, mobile assets that they've got to deploy, not only to tournament, fishing leagues, but to retail activations and all kinds of other things they've got to support. So you have to take into account all of the investment and time, labor, and resources that have to go into that. And as we had those conversations, it came down to, yes, we want to continue to evolve and do that, but we want to grow with you as you do that. And so you're going to see more of those larger things, evolve as we move forward. But I think our sponsors are wanting to work with us to do that and get it right, and not just be diluted and have a presence at every event, that may or may not. Because, honestly, our focus is so much on the gameplay, and it's just because our format is different. And so while we are focused on covering the game and creating all those things and the way we, cover it with our platforms, it is important to have those fan interactions. It's important for, the fans, but it's also important for the anglers, right? And it's important for us as a staff to build that. And so, but we also, just like what we've done with Major League Fishing and how disruptive we've been and innovative in how the game is played and everything else, we are being very strategic about how we create fan interactions and activate that will be new and exciting and create surprise and delight moments for the fans.
All right, I'm going to ask you a question later because it's already blowing up on the instant feedback, but you mentioned non-endemics, all right? And I want to get into that just a little bit because I remember on a show when you guys made the announcement that you hired a gentleman by the name of Mr. Is it pronounced Klechko?
Jeff Klacko.
Klacko.
Yep.
All right. This dude was big time. All right. New York City. He spent a lot of time working with NBC Sports. He was heavily involved with soccer. This was, I said at the time, and I still believe it, that it was one of the most important hires that you guys did because of the Rolodex or portfolio or contacts that this guy had. With all the experience that he had. I know it's year one, but the non-endemics getting involved with Major League Fishing seems to not really be there. Is it what I classify a field of dreams? You got to build it first, and these big names outside of the fishing industry are going to come? Or is it a sales cycle issue? Or is it just they'd rather spend their money on Monday Night Football or ABC's Wide World of Sports or whatever? What is it, John?
That's another great question, and I think it's a combination of all of those things. When I was on the client side, as a brand marketer with Bass Pro, I remember we didn't want to necessarily invest in startups, right? You wanted to see some level of history. Now, from that perspective, I think that with the non-endemics, there's a education process to really understand, what fishing is and everything else. And I think because of our format and a lot of the stick and ball sports elements that are in that, I think that education becomes easier, but it's still, it takes some time. But I think there's also what you said, the sales and the lead generation, that cycle of that just takes longer, right? For some of these brands. And I will say we have some really exciting announcements that we'll be talking about here from a non-endemic standpoint here in the not too distant future that I think will help, solidify and address some of that. But our sales teams and business development teams are just getting after it in a really, really big way, evangelizing everything that is, awesome about Major League Fishing. It takes a little bit of time, and I think that, again, we've accomplished so much in a very short period of time, and we're out there really, really selling that and showing non-endemics what that is. And I think that, as this thing continues to progress, you're going to see more and more brands come on board because they're going to understand it. One of the things that I think we've seen early on that they're very excited about is, our digital platforms, our social platforms, all the things, and the tremendous amount of growth that we had in year one, And the reality is, sometimes, depending on the brand, it's hard to create that value proposition, for something that you don't have full history of on, right? So This is really the first year and cycle that we can go back and say, we have a full season under our belt. Here's all the things that we have. Here are the great successes. Here are the metrics. Here's everything that you want to measure and take a look at to really understand where, if you want to have an investment in here. And those stories are being told now, and I think we're gonna reap a lot of great benefits out of that in the near future. But again, just like anything else, it's a process.
One of the things that I've kind of talked about over this past year, and I consider myself a fan of the sport. I also happen to make my living in the sport, but man, I fish with, all my buddies are the weekend guys. I fish Major League Fishing style. I fish with the Bass Club. We fish all this stuff. And a lot of the hardcore fans, right? And they're just like, man, I can't get into it. I don't watch it. And then, you read the press releases, Major League Fishing's coming out with, hey, this is scoring really good. This is the most watched thing. And I kind of came up with this thing in my head. I'm like, well, they're gaining viewers. But I'm in the heartland of Oklahoma where there's a bunch of bass fishing fans. And these folks don't watch. They don't like it. Something doesn't click with them. So I'm saying they're gaining viewers, but they're having a tough time connecting with the fans. Is that something that you guys have kind of realized and work on, where you have to kind of it's a balancing act between bringing new people in without alienating those who identify with what bass fishing has been for the past 50 years with Bassmaster?
Yeah, I think really, really great topic, and one that we have spent a lot of time monitoring and discussing. And I think, you said it perfectly. It's like, how do you grow the pie without alienating the core, right? That's really what it comes down to. And I think, if our format was similar and we're trying to do it, that's one thing, right? Because I don't think it really disrupts a way of life. But we've been so disruptive because our format is different and all the things that have happened. But I do believe that, that perception, that we're losing fans, I think in some ways that we've got a lot of viewers, and we continue to grow that, exponentially. I think, fans that love us are happy. I don't know that they're out there, they're happy and they're doing things versus wanting to complain about things, mm-hmm. right? And so when, and we monitor all the feedback, and I think that you have to be sensitive to that and understand that, but not let that, potentially guide everything you do, right? Because how much of that is noise, versus other things. And I don't want to, I'm not saying that to discredit, your discussions with your friends or anything else. But I think it also comes down to just the fact that our format as of right now, there's only a certain amount of people able to play it, right? In some way, shape, or form. And I think as that scales and goes bigger over time, and with some technology investments and other things, people will be able to relate to it. And I think that they will really understand the intensity and all those things that go into Major League Fishing, But I think that, as you take stock of where we're at, there's a lot of elements that played into just the emotion of the fans and everything that's happened, right? And going back and forth. But I think that overall, we are doing everything we can to listen and to be open about it. But, also we want all the fans, to be a part of this. But at the end of the day, it's about, there's a basic human need, right? To give people choices.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's all anyone ever wants, and if it's Major League Fishing, if it's FLW, and, we're fortunate enough to have, multiple formats, that can address any angler needs or anything else. But as we go forward, I think that, as more people continue to understand that and see some of the things that we've continued to do, in 2020 to continue to build upon, the great format that we've had so far and some of those other really interesting things that I think will create intrigue and everything else, I think that, it will be awesome, and our fans will come out even more and really, really enjoy it.
Kind of along those same lines, then, you mentioned kind of the progression and the changes, and obviously Major League Fishing came out with a big, the anglers can make. The first thing that they did was vote for no entry fees, and that was big. But you also see some changes going into this next year, as far as the anglers in the first two rounds winning their heaviest weight, going to the finals to prevent guys from backing off. You have the heavyweights that you did to add a big fish element in. You have the variable weights for each event, which is kind of like the PGA handicap for it, or the par for the courses, as you've stated before. So these are all kind of major changes that you've seen people talking about on message boards, on forums, on Major League Fishing. The 1 pounder, the guys quit fishing, or there's no big fish. But then you also have your angler committee, with each leader there that's suggesting it. How much of those changes implemented were on a result of feedback on social media and fan reaction, or what the anglers requested and then voted on?
I think it's a combination of all of it. I think that to be an open and transparent sports property and really understand it. And I know I mentioned in this past, I really feel like we are, the epitome of what a 21st century sports league would look like, in terms of, taking a tech sector analogy that, we continue to get a product out there and we iterate on it, we make it better, and we didn't have the luxury of time to test this or anything else. So we're doing this as we go and building it as we go. But I think that we've moved very fast, which is a great thing, and we've got great success behind us with the cups and selects and what that is that help prove out the case of what we wanted to do moving forward. But in terms of that, I just think that what we continue to do and what we build out with all of these new interesting innovations, it's all about creating the best experience possible for the fan, and I think that we would be very myopic to think that we know that all, by ourselves, an executive or leadership team, and that's just not the spirit or culture of Major League Fishing. It's an extremely collaborative environment, and I think that, from an angler standpoint and the voice and how we listen to them and how we engage and talk to them on an ongoing basis helps really inform a lot of those decisions, but it's who are the stakeholders, right? It's the league, it's the fans, it's the anglers, right? And I think you have to take all of those into account, as you make these strategic decisions. But, even within that, I think that the beauty in some way, and this isn't meant, as anything to disrespect anything else, but because we don't have a lot of history behind us to dictate having to be in a certain format or whatever, we can spend this time to iterate and do things and test things and put things out there to get to the absolute right product. And we are well on our way to that, and we're very excited, and we think 2020 is going to be a phenomenal year and build on the successes. And even just like something I talked about earlier about just having a schedule that's built from the ground up to do that, is going to make big strides, plus everything else that we've introduced.
I'll ask this question because I've heard this before. It's about the new product and everything. Answer this how you want, but my question would be, what was wrong with the quote-unquote old product? Because I hear that a lot, and that's a question that people go, well, I don't know. What was wrong with the Catch 5 and Cull and the 4-day? Like, what was wrong with the old product?
Honestly, there is nothing wrong. I mean, we are in that game as well, with FLW. And I think we just, for wanting to grow the sport and tournament fishing, we just felt that the natural progression and evolution of Major League Fishing and what we were doing from a TV standpoint could scale and replicate and get out there to a full league, right? And I think that the intention is, we just want to grow the sport, grow fishing, and get more people involved, right? And we just felt like this format was going to allow us to do that because of consumer preferences in terms of what we monitor and see and how we compare ourselves to other major professional sports, right? And so I talked about some of the stick and ball elements, periods, penalties, all those other things that, a non-outdoorsman can relate to, right? So how do we get them in the funnel and then get them interested in fishing, right? And do that and see that as, a viable means for recreation or other things, or, potentially get into the funnel to want to, fish a tournament or anything else. It's the lifeblood of the sport, and we've got to do that in some way.
All right. Great segue here.
Yeah.
All right.
I was just going to say, bleeding into that, and then what I talked earlier about just wanting to have choices, I don't think there's anything, wrong with that. And we want everyone, at the end of the day, the rising tide raises all ships, right? And so whether it's people that want to fish within anything in the Major League Fishing portfolio or with our competitors, at the end of the day, the right intention is what do we need to do to grow, but at the same point, not alienate anyone. And and part of the things that has probably created some of that consternation is just the rapid growth and the change that's happened really fast, and it's just a factor of that in business or anything else.
All right, great segue, because I want to talk about Michael Malone. All right, now Michael Malone, he's the guy, in case the fans out there don't realize who he is, he schedules and sets up and really plans all the events for the upcoming season and beyond. I mean, I'm sure he's probably working on the 2020 or 2022, 2023. Here's my question, John. I hear it all the time, grow the sport, grow the sport, grow the sport. When I look at the schedule from this year, not that there's anything wrong with it from a performance standpoint. But with you being the marketing guy and you being the business development guy, my question is are you working with Mr. Malone when he puts together the schedule? And we have a lot of West Coast listeners, and I stick up for the West Coast guys a lot on this show. There is, a massive population on the West Coast of people that don't understand the game. Why not go to the West Coast? I don't care if it is the second year, all right? But why not open it up to where you have this vast population of people that are not familiar with what's going on and get West Coast specific companies involved with Major League Fishing, to where now you're starting to open up your brand and these guys and the anglers and everything else to a market that is somewhat untapped. In other words, this year you're going back to where I think you have a very substantial marketing presence from a fishing standpoint, but the West Coast is wide open. What are your thoughts?
I'm really curious if you're wiretapping our conversations internally, because I think you're nailing a lot of things that we discuss a lot with that. And yes, to your question, absolutely, we work very closely, Michael and I, and really, that whole senior leadership team. We are all symbiotic in terms of how we work together for all of this, because there's a lot of inputs that come into that, from Michael and his teams and what they're doing from a site selection standpoint. We have to consider sponsors, right? We have to consider a whole variety of things on top of the fishing and everything else. Now, having said that, there absolutely have been discussions, about the West Coast. I think it's an underserved area, and one that I know that we are very anxious to get out that way. Not only us as an organization and a league, but also, we hear it from our anglers and fans. But again, it's very hard to solve all the world's problems, right? when they're coming on top of each other and dealing with FLW and the acquisition. So it's about prioritization, and it's just, we needed this year to build a schedule that we could figure out how to make sure and execute and do it well from start to finish. And that's what we did. And Michael and his teams have done a phenomenal job, right? And I think that the action on those lakes is going to be unbelievable. But absolutely, West Coast is important. That's part of our, longer range plans and what we want to do with that. But, it's before you get to, the logistics and everything else of having to do that, you want to continue to build and make sure that you can execute flawlessly all the things that we need to do, throughout a season. And so it's something that's an active topic of discussion. I will say, Michael worked with, there was an angler advisory committee for site selection. And so those guys were, there was a committee there, and they talked and they vetted with all of their anglers, to get recommendations on different lakes and everything else. So everything was looked at, but there's a lot of elements that go into that. It's not just saying that Major League Fishing wants to go out to the West Coast, go out to the Delta or Clear Lake or anything else.
Right.
There's host city implications, right? There's other things that pertain to the business they need to have that have a little bit of longer, lead cycle and what the interest is out there. So I guess at the end of the day, the answer is absolutely, it's something that's an area of intense interest to us, but the business conditions have to be right to do that.
All right. I mean, fair enough.
One of the things I wanted to talk a little bit was the FLW acquisition. It seems like a lot of the staff and people have been in place over there. It's kind of business as usual for them. I've seen a lot of the media and people behind the scenes stay in that, but I want you to talk a little bit about the challenges of taking on FLW. Obviously, that deal didn't go through to the beginning of November. Their tournament starts in 8 days on Sam Rayburn. We saw some major boat companies leave. Obviously, Phoenix came back in. Some non-endemics went away. There's, behind the scenes been a lot of talk about how to actually structure and work that. Talk about where FLW from the marketing standpoint stands in there and how its value is maintained and not kind of dropped a notch now that there is the BPT above it, and maintains the value of those anglers that are fishing at that level.
Yeah. So first and foremost, I would think one of the great things with FLW and the acquisition, the timing, isn't ideal, but that's just life, right? And then you just adjust accordingly. And we had, a very short runway to get to 2020 to implement everything we needed to. But I think a key thing in that was the unbelievable teams that are out there, in Kentucky and Minnesota, to be able to still be a part of this and move forward. That was key, right? And I think the best thing about that was the cultures meshed. They're very complementary to each other, and I think the strengths of Major League Fishing and the strengths of FLW, came together and was more additive and bigger than the sum of the whole. So, I think that was the underpinnings of why this made all the business sense in the world, right? I think that, to your point about what has happened and sponsor movement, brand movement, it's just a way of life in this business, and the one that's very sponsor driven. And so I think, with that, like I said earlier, we've got some pretty exciting announcements that are going to be coming out very soon that I think will, clearly address any of this, sentiment that's out there, or the optics or the perception of that. But the reality is that as we've moved forward and everything else, we've got some early results, just from, participation in the BFLs off the first event. I mean, it's the highest in history, that of FLW over, 25 years. And so I think we've had to really make some adjustments on the fly and implement them fast, expanding the divisions in the series and reducing fees and doing all those things. But overall, from an grassroots angler reception has been extremely positive, and I think at the end of the day, it's created more pathways and opportunities for people. I think it's also, been a less financial drain on them, and also with the ability to travel less because of more divisions in some areas or anything else. I think it's been clearly a net positive in all of that. But, overall, we just continue to see and evolve that, and we were in a place where the timing, like I said, for sponsors and everything else, there's a lot of movement and everything, and as that goes. But the interesting thing is, FLW has created new opportunities for new brands to come in, and aligning with Major League Fishing and everything else. And like I said, some of the announcements that we have that are forthcoming will really show that, not only is there a lot of interest, but there's going to be a lot of really cool and interesting brands, that are really have an opportunity now to step in where they hadn't had before, because categories were locked down, exclusive or other things. So we're excited. Phoenix, as our exclusive boat sponsor, has just, been through the moon excited about the early results on that, and we're barely getting started on it. So, everything points in a really, really positive direction, and we are. Again, we're put in this position where we have to move fast and react, and then we'll course correct and adjust as needed. And, luckily we're not rigid, or anything else, but we just continue to learn and adapt.
All right, John, change, let's face it, it's difficult. And sometimes it's very, very tough for people to get used to. From the marketability, and obviously with you being a marketing guy, the marketability of the endemics that are involved with this game, I know you don't control the production of the television show and what takes place on the water, but let's face it, I think the fans and also I think some of the sponsors in the industry are used to seeing the players talk about what they're doing from a technique standpoint, what they're using, and it seems to be, at least last year and with the television show, that it's fish catch, fish catch, fish catch, fish catch, more fish catch, and not really an element of explaining what's going on. Now, I understand that you guys have specific segments, but not during the show, that are separate and they're a totally different TV format, show format that go a little bit more into it. But I think the fan, and I think you tell me, are the endemic sponsors wanting these guys, when the action is actually taking place, to get more of an opportunity to talk about what they're using?
Yeah, no, it's a great comment, and I will say that for the first 8 years of Major League Fishing, right, when it was a made-for-TV show, the essence of that was the fast-paced catch, weigh, and release, every fish counts, format and everything else. And so as you continue to bring that into a larger scale format, with a full-fledged tour, what got us to the dance, right, and made us so successful, and popular, was that format, and as we saw, as we were going through, many, many great things, and we see it we really get back down to what do the numbers look like, right? Are the viewers there? Are the fans there? All of those things. And everything says we are doing things absolutely the way it had intended to, and we're hitting our goals. Now, by the same point, I think it would be naive to think that, we pat ourselves on the back and we do that, whatever. We're I've said this before, we're our own worst critics, right? What can we do to continue to get better? But I think beyond that, you do have to take into account, business needs, sponsor needs, and everything else. And at the end of the day, being an angler-centric league, we want to do everything we can as a league to make sure that we put our anglers, our athletes, in the best position to succeed. So whether that is optimizing our platforms and our coverage to make sure that our anglers are successful in promoting their sponsors or anything else, we're going to make those adjustments to it, right? But there's a lot of things to weigh in, because if you're going to allow more time and move, not move as much from catch to catch, whatever. Now that's counterintuitive to what works, right, with our score tracker.
It goes back to the fans versus viewers relationship.
And how do you balance that and figure that out? And again, we're just going to test it and work on that on the fly. But I think that we're going to hit that sweet spot, of where that is. But at the same point, at the end of the day, it's always going to be fast-paced action, right? And it's always going to be about, seeing that movement on the leaderboard and the drama and the cut lines and the advancement and all those things that have made the Bass Pro Tour so interesting and radically different. But, is there a way through what we're going to be doing with our talent and studio coverage? Is there a way through, not only working with our sponsors and other things, but also working with anglers and production specifically, as they continue to evolve how they cover the game, to allow some of those moments, right, to be able to talk about sponsors or talk about techniques or other things in the midst of, a big catcher moment. It's a delicate balance act of, we've created great moments and unbelievable things that have happened last year and the action, but you never want to lose that juice and magic. But how do you also satisfy the business needs? And that's something we continually talk about. And I think it gets back to just that continual open conversation and collaboration. And because when we're in this year 2 testing phase, we're going to continue to work through that and do what's right for all of our stakeholders. So not just fans, but also our sponsors and our anglers.
I mean, the moment that comes to mind there, Andy Montgomery boat flipping that fish at the last second,
Exactly.
and you're dealt with the task of capturing the excitement of that boat flip while also maintaining the fact that he caught that on a Strike King Thunder cricket and how he was fishing it and where he was fishing it without slowing down the action to going to the next guy who's trying to get his fish in with 5 seconds left in the show. I mean, that's kind of the dynamic that you're dealing with there.
Yeah, it is. And I think, and it's hard for, I think, just the general public to understand. It's hard for us internally to understand because we haven't played the game, but I think that all of the emotional aspects, and I talk to the anglers, on a daily basis, or I talk to them at other events, and just, they talk about the intensity and think about all the things that you're thinking about, right? And your strategies when you're fishing, in a competitive environment. And then you just flip the switch and go from 0 to 100, right? With, knowing the score and the score tracker and the constant movement and the pressure that creates. So there's just a lot of things going on, in your head at once and everything else, on top of trying to keep up with that and having the time to be able to talk about sponsors. I think that, those are the things that we're very mindful of. And I think as we move forward and continue to collaborate with our anglers and create the best product possible, we're going to find that magic formula that will be able to address all of that. And I think you're going to see that, immediately here in the 2020 season.
John, is one of your biggest challenges from a marketing and sales standpoint really trying to balance all 3 elements, the fans, the anglers, and the sponsors, and try and engage, educate, all right, and entertain all 3 of those? Is that a huge challenge?
It's just part of the job, and it's part of, what we do. We've got very, very lofty aspirations on what we want this sport to be and where it's going. And with that, you have to take into account all of those stakeholders. And really, one of the things that I think, at least the way we work is the amount of communication and collaboration, right? And the ability to look at ourselves and critique ourselves and understand, what are we doing? Are we doing this right? Is there a better way to do this?
Yeah.
What else can we do? So you're constantly gut checking and trying to figure out and doing that as a collaborative leadership group. And I think that's going to help us get to where we want to get to with our goals. And we're very excited about that. And I think that you got to trust in the process, and the reality is, again, we are 1 year under our belt. Now we're bringing FLW into this and everything else. So a lot of change is happening. It's happening very rapidly, but we've got a lot of smart people, not only on our teams at the leagues, but the anglers and everyone else that, works with us in Major League Fishing to create, the best product possible that can help grow the sport and address all of those things. It's a complicated mix of a lot of things, but I think that when you break it down in simplest terms, you've got to have an open mind and you've got to listen, right? And then make the adjustments accordingly and not feel like, what we think and do is a be all end all to that. I think there's a fine balance of that. And I think that you're going to see that here in 2020 and beyond, but, we're going to land on the right formula here, in the short term, and then it's going to be phenomenal as it goes forward.
One of the things I want to kind of get your take on, dealing with both the public and the marketing and the sponsorship side of it, is the turnover that we've seen after the first year. Obviously, it was big news for the fans and industry with Swindle and Pollinet going back to the Elite Series and the legions of those Alabama fans that followed Gerald Swindle. And then you go to the FLW Tour, you got 500,000 YouTube viewers in Scott Martin, Rising Stars in Castledine, and Upshaw, who won events that are fishing the Opens instead. And people can look at that and see something's wrong with MLF. These are established guys and they're out of it after a single year. How has that been addressed from the sponsors going, well, my guys are out of here? And also the fan perception of, oh, my favorite angler didn't like it. Has that been kind of hard? And just kind of talk a little bit as a whole, the impact that some of that, and I'll call it lateral movement from league to league, FLW to the Opens, and then BPT to the Elite Series has caused.
Yeah, it's a great topic. Just like other professional sports leagues, roster turnover, player movement is just a reality, right? And we're not immune to that. And we go into this game thinking that and anticipating that it's just part of life, right? And as we continue to move forward, we just know that that's going to happen. So you just have to account for that in your overall business mindset. By the same point, we've got 78 anglers, of the best anglers in the world, that are here with us. And not only that, we've strengthened that group by adding, Brian Thrift and David Dudley, who are well decorated and accomplished, and, their FLW ties and everything else help bridge even more so just that continuity between MLF and FLW. But yes, I understand the perception of what that looks like, and if it's if fans want to draw that conclusion of it's an I told you so moment or anything else, but we don't really look at it like that. I think we're just much more pragmatic and understanding, like, look, this is just part of the cycle of business and how things go as a sports league. And so we really feel that everyone that we've got at all of our different levels, not just the Bass Pro Tour but the Pro Circuit on forward, and then we also see the continuing participation numbers that we have at those lower grassroots level are very encouraging markers for us. And so we feel that we are staying the course of what we're doing. We know that is part of what we're going to be facing, moving forward. And we just feel that, just like other professional sports that deal with that all the time, that's just part of the business and part of what we do. And so, I get it I think it's at times, because this whole thing has been emotional, that it's intensified from a fan standpoint. And I get that. I think we're, sensitive and understand that. But, at the end of the day, when you look at the total body of players and anglers that we have and everything else, I mean, it is unprecedented.
And it's easy to know all that stuff off the top of my head, because I'm a hardcore fan,
right,
and I follow it.
Yeah.
So the next question is, like, do you have demographics on what percent of the viewership you would deem hardcore fans or whatever you label, as opposed to, like, I mean, what percent even know any of this stuff, or as opposed to just fans of MLF who are watching? Because, like, I always do it on the Speed Network. I always relate it to motocross, because I understand the premise of motocross.
Yeah.
I could not start a bike. Like, I could not get the engine started. Like, I would not understand it. But I like watching it. I get it when they're passing it, the quarters, and the moves, and the blocks, and the jumps, and all that stuff. But I don't know what the heck's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
What percent are like me watching the Speed Channel, where I don't know that this guy just got cut by this team and got screwed by this owner and changed from Yamaha to Suzuki? You know what I mean? And then what percent are the guys who really get it? Really are the hardcore fans?
Yeah, I think it comes down to the platform, right? So if you think about from the live stream, and that product, that is the vast majority of our hardcore guy. You look at the success that we had with our Bass Pro Tour TV shows that aired this season on Discovery Channel, and a significant percentage, were new viewers that were not outside, that were outside of the core angler or anything else. And so we've got elements that the live stream can continue to serve the hardcore guy, but then we also have an acquisition strategy with the Discovery platform, that broad reach television linear TV platform that will get a lot of new people in. And so I guess to answer your question, I can't say fully because we're still getting all the data back and everything else from the networks and from Discovery about what that is. But, what we're seeing so far is that we are growing the pie, in a big way, which is good. Now, we also want to be able to convert those and do things and work with our partners like Bass Pro Shops, and they want to drive more traffic, get more things in retail, and grow the pie. We had a similar objective when I was at Bass Pro Shops, but we're doing the things that we are doing that were strategically outlined in our goals and objectives. And so it's happening and as it goes. And I think as some of this emotion, subsides and we get back on the water and do things and create these great moments, I think that, over time, all of the interesting new innovations that we're bringing in 2020 will continue to create interest, not only from the hardcore angler, but also from the new users that we brought into the funnel.
All right, 2020 and beyond. What's the biggest thing that the fans are going to be excited about and really can look forward to, and what's going to take place?
I think from a 2020 standpoint, seeing our anglers, on the water, fishing these in storied bodies of water, but also doing it in the Major League Fishing style, right? And having that schedule built where the beauty of our format is we can go to smaller lakes, right? Because we only have 40 boats on the water at any given time. I think that's going to be really, really interesting with some cool venues that we're going to. I think, honestly, things like Heavy Hitters, is such an incredible event. I mean, we're talking about, $750,000, in total money for 30 anglers.
Yeah.
That's stunning, right? Imagine, a championship payout if you win that event of $100,000, but also for those 30 guys, days 1 and 2, you win, your big fish. If you win the big fish today, 25 grand. Days 3 and 4, 50 grand. Championship day, 100 grand. That's a lot of money, right? That it's really unprecedented, to see in that way, shape, or form. So you've got that going on. I think the idea of the variable minimum weights, by lake, and being able to, like you mentioned earlier, about being able to handicap the lakes, golf, like golf or anything else, is really going to be cool and create some really dynamic storylines. Not only for now, but for the future. When we come back to some of these fisheries. So, there's a lot. It's a lot to pinpoint, and brands are noticing, and like I said, we're continuing to work with them and bring new brands on board, as you see that. And so I think you're going to see that parallel growth in what we're doing from a format standpoint, not with only the Bass Pro Tour and the Major League Fishing side of it, but also what that relationship with FLW looks like as they, continue to provide a full pathway, for anglers, creating more opportunities. That's probably what gets me and gets Major League Fishing most excited about, is at the end of the day, is it creating opportunities? Are we growing the sport, and is it creating opportunities? And we think that, with the acquisition of FLW and the changes that have been made, and then what continues to grow, that all of those things, that there are entry points for an angler of any type, to get as far as they have, and to potentially have career aspirations to become, professional and be in the No Entry Bass Pro Tour League. I think it's really great. And at that point, the cream rises to the top, and it's about talent, right? It's not about your financial backing or anything else. And so, all those things play in the thing, but but we just want to create a better today and a better tomorrow for anglers, and then also grow and make sure that fish, our aspiration is to make fishing a mainstream sport, that's spoken in the same breath as other things. Is it lofty? Sure, absolutely. But by the same point, we dream big, and I think we've got the juice, the backing, and a lot of smart people, doing this, that we feel incredibly bullish that we'll get there.
All right, you doing okay?
Yeah.
We've been going a little while here. I just want to make sure you're good.
Absolutely.
All right, a couple more things, and then we'll wrap things up. But one thing that I've stressed on this show numerous times about Major League Fishing is I think it is critical to grow, and everybody says we want to grow everything, is the involvement that you have from a marketing and PR standpoint in getting media outside of the media that's in the industry. In other words, having Kevin Van Dam on Good Morning America, or having Skeet Reese on a show that takes place on the West Coast to talk about what's going on Major League Fishing. Me personally, I've really tried to be active in trying to find content that is outside the fishing industry. And John, I just haven't seen it yet. Is it difficult to get that done? And do you have a marketing plan to get more of your guys, more of the players involved in media outside? And let's face it, I'm not talking about having a wing eating contest. I'm talking about getting these guys on national network television or regional or even local network television. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, another great comment and thought. And the reality is, yes, absolutely, it is a strategic imperative for us to do that. I think one of the things that the general public, as well as, I think even industry insiders don't really see or understand is the way we've staffed at Major League Fishing. And we had a similar thing at Bass Pro Shops. I think that we brought in high-level players and marketers. We've got, our senior director of over PR and communications, Tricia Milford. She came in, from Disney, and ESPN, and working on all these other things, and has a background in college athletics and everything else. And so we're bringing in people with well-rounded experience that are outside of fishing, right? And I think that may sound counterintuitive, right? How they know the business, but when you start to augment that with people that endemically know the business, now we're a lot stronger, right? And so now we've actually built out those capabilities to go after all of those broad reach, national scale things that you talk about. And, that's something that's being worked on every day. Just like we talked earlier about the business development and sales cycle, that's a process, right? And I think there's an education aspect to that or whatever. But, Tricia, has been out to New York doing press tours, talking to media and everything else. And so those are all things that are happening, but you don't have the visibility to see that, right? It's just our internal day-to-day stuff. But I'm glad that you brought it up, that is absolutely, super important to us. And I think that's part of, that is one specific strategy in terms of how we grow the sport and we reach those lofty ambitions that I talked about being a mainstream sport. So you have to do that. You have to make those strategic hires, the Jeff Klackos of the world and everything else that come in from, that have been where we want to be, right? And so you bring that in, and I think that helps elevate everything we do. And I think that, you look back and, 18 months from now, we could have the same conversation again. I could have a lot more answers and other things and a lot more data points and press clippings and clips to show you that, what we're doing is working and we really got after it. So it's part of the process.
All right, I'm going to ask you this, and Matt, you can respond too. Any idea what I consider the most epic moment for bass fishing outside of the fishing media and fishing industry? You know what it was, Matt?
The most epic moment?
Yeah.
Like media-wise?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's two that come to mind right away.
What is it?
There's three that come to mind.
Well,
one is Ike and Ellie GQ magazine.
That's one of them. I'll give you that much, but it's not the epic one.
The other one is Denny Brower on The Tonight Show.
No, it was actually Late Night with David Letterman.
With David Letterman.
Dude, if you could pull that off and get one of these guys on a late night talk show, it would be epic because you can't find that clip. You have to actually pay for the clip now. Letterman's got this worldwide pants production thing where you got to pay for clips now and all that. But I still believe in all my years of covering this game that Denny Brower on Late Night with David Letterman was probably the most epic moment for this game, to where people actually thought, wow, they really do that? You know, they really do that. So I'm waiting. I know you guys are working your tails off to try and get there, but I continually hear, and you can hear my passion about the West Coast guys and how we need to take this game into markets and really position it. I know you guys are trying it on the Discovery Channel and trying to reach out and stuff, but I am still patiently waiting to see how you guys are going to pull that off.
Yeah, and you know, and like I said, that is a process. But again, I do believe you're wiretapping all of our internal conversations.
I am not,
because we do have all, and we have talked in specifics about everything that you are saying, and those are the aspirations, you know, and what we want to get after, and we've built a team with the experience and the knowledge base and the connections to do that. And I think those are those, like I said, the strategic investments and hires that you do to build the foundation for the future, right? And you know, it's I think the best way for us to succeed is a well-rounded perspective, and having players and the staff and everything else that can both endemically and authentically, from a fishing standpoint, understand the technicalities and all of that, but round that out with people that understand how to elevate the sport and bring it into the mainstream consciousness, right, through media, PR, and other things. And those are the things that we've had to go outside of the box that you normally don't expect in the fishing industry, you know, to do that. And so those have been very strategic hires, you know, for that, you know, and then like I said earlier, in the not too distant future, you're really going to start to see the payoff and benefit of all of that across our business.
I was going to say two others that we left out that were big, that I think are as big. I think Skeet on the cover of Parade.
Yeah, because at the time the Sunday newspaper was a big deal. It's not anymore.
And Edwin on the Today Show.
Yeah.
In Times Square with the bass boat thing.
Yeah, that's true.
Those are, I mean, there's 5 right there that, I mean, it doesn't get any more mainstream than that. And I think those are from the years 98 all the way through 2017, 2018.
Yeah. All right, man. Last thing I've got, Matthew and John, is the instant feedback's been blowing up. I mean, message after message after message. They want to know about fantasy fishing, John. What's the status? What's the scoop? What can you tell the fans about fantasy fishing?
All I can say at this point is it's an area of intense interest to us. It is something that is absolutely something we're addressing. I don't want to get into any specifics, because I will say that when that does come out, you know, just like the essence of everything else that Major League Fishing does, it's going to be new, fresh, and innovative with some really, really interesting things there. But we know it's something that the fans want. We hear it. We hear the feedback, and it is definitely something that will be coming in the future. And I think when we do introduce it and you see how it's structured in advance, if we build it out how we are planning to build it out, it will be a category game changer.
All right,
I
Matthew?
got 2 things. First one, most positive thing that has happened, where you guys went into this thing a year and a half ago going, this is going to suck, this is going to end. It just blew your expectations away from your side of the job and what you do. Like the easiest thing, or has there been an easy aspect?
You know, there was a moment at stage 1 Kissimmee, right, when we were going through all this, and I think there was a point where, you know, we were just hoping the live stream turned on, right. And everything else. But I remember I think it might have been after the knockout round or anything else, and we're seeing all this craziness happen. And Joel Shangle, our senior director of media and PR, or media and digital, that you guys know, we were standing across the field from each other, and we were just looking at each other with our jaw dropped, like, oh my gosh, is this actually happening?
That's cool.
And then the best thing that I remember and this is probably one of the most epic moments, was, you know, the drive-through line when they were coming through to do that. I think it was after the knockout round. I was going around and talking to some of the anglers to just say hello to them and introduce myself to the ones that I don't know, because most of the guys I knew were the Bass Pro guys and everything else. And I come up to Jared Lintner, and I'm like, hey man, how you doing? You know, and he's like in his truck, and he's kind of doubled over and like gassed, right? And the dude's an athlete, you know, basketball, all that. I'm like, hey man, you all right? He's like, dude, that was the most draining and emotionally draining and intense day of fishing I ever had, and it was unbelievable, right? But he was gassed, bent over, and all I could think about after that was, oh my gosh, we have really landed on a crazy format. And then you started to see, as it continued to progress, some of the cut line drama, like in Conroe, Stephen Brown asked me, we can, we did a top 10, you saw that video of the top 10 moments of that, of the 2019 season. They're all incredible, right? Yeah. And it's just like, where else? I don't think you would have seen that in any other way, in tournament fishing. It really hadn't been seen just because of the format and everything else. So, those key moments and those things, every stage, every day has the ability to produce those moments, in some way, shape, or form, and that's what really excites me.
You want to hear a funny
fans love it?
Me and Joel Schenkel story?
Yeah.
Really? You ready for this?
Yeah, do it.
So 2 years ago, we're on the banks of the Salors River, and there's a freelance writer from the New York Times there. And they did 20 hours of interviews with these guys. We're like, what is going on? So Josh Bertrand wins, and he's idling his boat over after the photo shoot, and we're waiting. I'm doing media stuff, and Joel's doing media stuff for that. And I had been to every Elite Series tournament since 2008 at that point, so I was getting kind of bored. And I tell her, I said, I told Joel, I said, let's mess with this chick a little bit. So I tell her, she said, what are you guys waiting on? I said, we're waiting on the champion's baptism. And she's like, what the heck is that? And I said, yeah, Joel and I have been out here for so many years, and every time there's a first-time winner, I said, we lock him in a porta potty after he wins. We push him in there, lock him, and then push the porta potty over and run off. So we're waiting on Bertrand to get back for the champion's baptism. And Joel's like, yeah, we get him to where he stands in the door of the outhouse, and we do this from the outhouse to the penthouse thing, and that's how we get him in there, and then we lock it. And then Joel goes in the media trailer and comes back with a broken zip tie. He's like, this is how we lock him in the bathroom.
No way.
So she does her interviews and stuff, and then she goes around and she waits for half an hour for us to do the champion's baptism with Josh Bertrand, and then she ends up leaving. And then she asks, and she's like, well, if I ask the other guys, will they tell us about it? And we're like, no, it's like super top secret. So like all the guys who have won want to make sure it keeps happening, so no one will ever talk about it. And she's like, well, I'm going to dinner with like Brandon Pollock and stuff later. We're like, ask him about it. He'll pretend like he knows nothing about it, but he totally got flipped after his first tournament. So she ended up asking all these people about it, and we still laugh about it to this day. We even asked her about it when we had her on the show.
Yeah, that's pretty funny.
Anyway, that's my Joel Schenkel. Then I also have something for me that Brad didn't take, but after reading your bio, I feel like you should have it. Like if you go to there's the last line of your bio. Said John graduated from University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, which is 45 minutes from where I grew up. It is originally from the Chicago area. He spends his free time with his tennis crazy family, which includes his wife Lisa and their 7 children. Tyler, Evan, Amanda, Autumn, Carson, Cameron, and Gianna?
Yep.
So you said what? Graduating college all the way down to 5 years old?
Yep.
All right. Well, we got these. John Sajak sent us these before.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that is amazing.
Have you seen this? Before Christmas, and he wrote in it, Matt, for someday. Because I don't have any kids.
I don't think it's ever going to happen, but that's okay.
We're like years away. But if you got 5-year-old, there's like a every different letter is for
Oh my
fish.
gosh, that is a great book.
Yeah, so if you want to borrow that thing.
So why don't we do this? Let me borrow that.
And then I'll call you in 5 to 7 years.
Exactly, and I'm going to bring it back to you. It'll just be a semi-permanent loan until you enter that life stage, and then we will have this thing to continue to move forward as a legacy piece.
There you go.
It's wonderful. Thank you. That was very
There you have it.
That's re-gifting at its finest. I get it as a gift. Give it to Brad. Brad's like, I don't need it yet. So now John's got
That's
it.
Right. We'll pass it on. Pass it forward. That's great.
That's funny. Man, do you like fishing? I mean, do you probably get to go with some pretty cool dudes?
I do. When I was at Bass Pro and everything. So I guess I'll say it the best way possible. You guys understand that I've got a big family, life, and travel, competitive tennis, everything else. So it's been very, very busy. But you know how a lot of guys do business on the golf course?
Yeah.
I tend to do business on the water, right? And take people fishing and do other things and things like that. So I absolutely enjoy it. I don't get to do it nearly as much as I would like to, but because of family and other interests and everything else like that. But have a huge, huge respect for it. And, I think especially being inside, at Bass Pro for 12 years and other things, being in the industry, coming to Major League Fishing has been so great and wonderful. And it's really, of all the things that, I could have done, wanting to stay in the industry because of the people. You just see the camaraderie between the pros, the sponsors, everything else, and I think that at the end of the day, we're in a relationship-driven business, and I think that's what really, to me, and in all of my observations and dealings in this industry, really separates Major League Fishing, is that I think that amount of care and culture and respect to want to foster those relationships, not only with sponsors, clearly those are things you have to manage from a relationship standpoint, but with the anglers, and with the fans and everything else. And I think if you talk to the anglers, then you'll get a good perspective of them that, we have great intentions, we have big hearts, and we're just trying to do the right thing, And I think if you boil it down to those simple things, you're always going to do the right thing, and that's what we're trying to do. And I think that, some things that may have been perception that, have happened in 2019, in terms of the perception of Major League Fishing, I think that, they were nothing more than a symptomatic aspect of rapid growth, and as we continue to grow and do things, but, we're extremely thoughtful, and we try and make sure that, in every aspect that we're thinking through things and trying to do what is best and really being very mindful of all the stakeholders and as we move forward. And we think that 2020 is going to be an awesome year, and we think that fans, new and existing viewers, are all going to be thrilled by what they're going to see.
All right, very cool, man. Can't thank you enough for coming down, making the trip down from Springfield.
Absolutely.
And I hope the fans and everybody that listens to this enjoyed the interview and got kind of an insight on where you guys are headed and some of the stuff that you've done in the past and how you're fixing it and how you're making things better for all three parties involved, the anglers, the fans, and the sponsors. So, John, appreciate it. You're welcome anytime, man.
Awesome. Hey, and again, just to close, thanks again for, adding an extra day and adding it to your workload to make this happen and to accommodate, my schedule and everything else to make this happen. But this was a thrill to meet you guys. Love the show, and we're just, again, excited for the new year, and thanks again for all your support.
All right, cool stuff. Matt, I got to tell you this real quick. We're going to wrap up the show, all right? Matt didn't realize that I was forming this professional tour for bowling here in Oklahoma. And today is a big day for me, Matt, because I didn't want to be rude doing the text thing while the show was going on, but I was getting a text because today is going to be the first day that a professional bowler is featured on the #1 sports talk radio show here in Oklahoma at 11:45. So, gentlemen,
who is that? Traber?
No, it's Mark Rogers and Dusty Dvorak.
Oh yeah.
So it's gonna air in the Oklahoma City market. It's gonna air in the Tulsa market. He's gonna talk about the PBA is making their national tour stop in Shawnee next week.
Is that where we went last year?
Yeah, and we're gonna go back. All right, and
it
is a big deal because it's, like I said, it's the first time. Just like what we talked about earlier, John, it's the first time that a bowler is going to be on Sports Talk Radio.
You walk into that place in Shawnee, they're like, that's like $10, and they're all lined up bowling. Jeffrey's like flashes his PVA card. They're like, oh, you're good. Then we walk in there, and I know he was on it. Like, there's like 30 people there watching. And this old dude walks up, he's like, Mark frickin' Jeffries?
He's a big deal.
And then he looks at me like thinks I'm his son or something. He's like, this guy used to just tear up Wednesday Night League. And now they like bowl together all the time. It was pretty funny.
Yeah. So very excited about that. It's a big day for what I have going on in the bowling world. And if you're in Oklahoma City or Tulsa, check it out. The Sports Animal, Mark Rogers, Dusty Dvorak, Mike Edwards going to be on live at 11:45.
I won't be able to miss that one.
I know, they're writing it down
work
right now.
Production across Oklahoma is going to plummet during that interview.
Sorry. I had to say it. All right.
No,
it's cool stuff, man. Cool stuff. All right. Next week, Monday, we're going to have Clark Wendelin. And then Tuesday, the big show, Jimmy Houston, live right here in studio. Everybody, be safe. That is it. We're out of here.